Hello and welcome back to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Peter Houston and we're exploring the people and the products powering publishing, both through this podcast and in our adjacent weekly newsletter, which you can sign up for at voices.media. This week I'm speaking with Rebecca Miskin of family-owned Scottish publisher DC Thomson. I caught up with Rebecca at the FIPP Congress in Madrid in October, ahead of her presentation titled The Gnarly Reality of Transformation. One of DC Thomson's iconic brands is the Beano, a children's comic magazine that's been published since the 1930s. And gnarly is very much a Beano word. I asked Rebecca why she describes transformation the way Dennis the Menace might, and maybe more ominously, as a cross between chess and Russian roulette. We spoke about the pressure and the privilege of working to transform a family-owned business that has a 200-year legacy, and the secrets of a successful transformation project. Spoiler, it's all about the people. First, I asked Rebecca about her career leading transformation efforts at several media businesses.
So the wonderful thing about hindsight is we can explain our mad choices of the past. So I never had a career ambition. I never had, I want to be a doctor, Yes, I think I have ended up in change and transformation, but I'm not sure I knew that when I started. I think I got involved in areas where there was change. So for instance, I started my career at the time when the internet was kicking off. Yeah. And then I discovered how amazing you can only find things if you use search to find things. And so I went to a search engine. And I think the one thing that is standard is I've used tools, we can call them technologies because they once were technologies, but I think they're now tools and data to transform the future of different businesses that I've been in, whether it's in media, in music, or in sport. And that's been fantastic. I mean, it really is, because it's a mix of chess and Russian roulette.
Oh, that's quite scary.
and transformation isn't one thing. I mean, you know this. It's if you have 5 people in your team, or 5,000 or 50,000, it is about trying to convince those individuals to make multiple different choices every day. So it's millions of decisions, and trying to win hearts and minds and move people into doing something where they let go of the stability that they've had and embrace something different.
Oh, that's interesting. That idea of letting go.
And letting go is not loss, but at the time it feels like loss.
Yeah, I get that, absolutely get that. It's a safety thing, right?
Yes, and I think, I've been fortunate that, the last 25 years has been internet, has had tech changes, has had different players in our market, brought up different competition, different behaviors for audiences. So, it's been fascinating because I can't claim to know what the way forward is, but if we listen enough, there are enough people in the organization, there are enough customers that if we get close to them, we can start hearing some recurring patterns and then start experimenting.
So when you were at Hearst, and your title at Hearst was Change Agent, which is the best job title.
No, the best job title is in our company at the moment, Chief Mischief Officer at
Beano.
Beano. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, at that point, you've got to realise, that I am actually working in change. I am working in transformation. So I've worked in digital media for decades, and it never felt like it was a change project, a little bit like what you've just said. But no one's ever said to me, you're a transformation person. Whereas they have said that to you. So does that actually shift the way you think about what you do?
I don't think it shifts what I believe I'm going to do, but I have to acknowledge it probably shifts perception of me by those that I work with, or when I'm recruited, the nerves or the fear or the excitement. I think what is interesting about transformation is that there are 70% of what you do in one organization or another, when you're moving it through, operating model changes, audience behavior changes, technology changes, cultural change, 80%, 70% is kind of the same. And then because there's phases and there's a structure and when the lows come. So knowing what success looks like is really helpful, because it helps me, but it helps my colleagues, it helps my shareholders trust the process, because there's times when you have no idea if it's working. And then slowly green shoots emerge, and then that's relief. And every time I vow I'm never going to do another one. And I had vowed that before I went to DC Thomson, saying never again. And I'm so relieved and privileged that I went back on myself.
We're at the FIPP Congress, obviously. We're speaking in the 5th floor of the convention centre, which is beautiful. Your presentation, I guess, is this afternoon?
Yes, that's right.
I wish I'd actually done this after your presentation, because I've got this, your presentation's titled, or the word gnarly is used in the context of transformation. I just want to know what you mean by gnarly around. That's a real Beano word, right?
Yes, and the presentation is very much bringing some of our characters, like Dennis the Menace, to the fore, because I think what I'm trying to show is you can be what today one calls legacy, but be exceptionally successful. And it is the mix of the marriage of the old and the new that is incredibly exciting. And gnarly is, I was very conscious that many would not understand what the word gnarly is if English is your second or third or fourth language. But in this instance, it's the slightly torturous, slightly mischievous, but actually, you keep going. All right, you still find a way of navigating and getting there. Yeah, and so it's that it's not this straight line. It's not neat. It's chaos. It's messy. You're blind when you start, and I think the journey is hard but rewarding. So gnarly felt, I didn't want to sugarcoat it. This isn't easy. It isn't easy for any of my colleagues. It isn't easy for our customers. It isn't easy for our shareholders. But change is iterative, it's not linear. And so gnarly felt as though it helped describe that.
Set the scene.
Yeah, I mean, how do you influence without control? When you come on board, you're saying something, but you don't know how someone is going to react in their day-to-day and whether they are going to change something or not. We talked earlier about stability. It is natural to cling to stability because it's safe, right? And in a world where geopolitics and AI, everything's terrifying for some. So safety is important, and so you then need a North Star to kind of outshine the craving for the familiar, for the known, and that needs to be exciting enough for people to want to shift behaviors. So gnarly felt purposeful at the time. But I suppose the one thing it doesn't do maybe is it's also incredibly exciting. I mean, watching talent thrive and seeing talent emerge, and it's not about age, it's about those who want to seize opportunity and those who want to learn new skills, and those who fess up and put their hand up when something goes wrong, which means we can all learn off it. And seeing that and watching that is incredibly, it's just so motivating. And it's, I'm also exceptionally grateful. We have a family, a board, shareholders who've backed us to do this. And you need to be patient. And that's, in today's market, and sometimes you kind of know the phases, but you don't know how long each phase is going to take. And that means that sometimes the timeline or the budget isn't met. But there's other times that we exceed it. So very fortunate to work with outstanding people and we have a huge sense of wanting to do good by our customers. But I think the presentation I'm going to do, I talk about, I believe there are 3 phases to transformation. And this isn't business language. You're not going to see this in a McKinsey presentation or PwC. But from Wild West to chaos. Right. And then from chaos to complex. And then complex to modern. So we can have whatever wonderful business terms, but fundamentally that's how it feels from the inside.
I love that idea of how it feels rather than what the spreadsheets say. That's really interesting. I mean, of course you're going to look at the spreadsheets, but I guess you've been doing this long enough to know that this doesn't feel right, or this feels amazing, let's get stuck into this one.
But also, you see certain people who start having influence, who are curious, who start doing things. And if you can create an environment, if we can all create an environment where that type of talent thrives, that is wonderful, because then they start having a ripple effect, and then you've got other people starting to change. It doesn't happen from me going somewhere. I don't go somewhere with answers. I try and create an environment where talent can thrive. And finance is important. It is critical because it's our measurement.
Of course. Yeah, it's all about the money at some point. You mentioned the family. Is that different? Working, Time Inc. or whoever, one of these bigger organisations. Well, I guess some of those are still family owned. But DC Thomson, particularly if you're from Scotland as I am, we know it's a family business, and there's a kind of legend around that. Does that make it harder or easier or just different?
I think it's, I suppose the one word would be a privilege. Yeah. I genuinely feel that. I think the authenticity that comes from a family business is really important, and whether your values and who you are match whatever the values are of a family business, because it's led by those values. And you know it by being Scottish, and I know it by being in the industry. But DC Thomson is very purpose driven. Purpose driven doesn't mean not commercial. All right, you can be commercial and purpose driven, and that attracts staff and colleagues and people who also want to be part of something where we are doing good. And so it does create a sense of authenticity. It does create a sense of purpose throughout the organization. We strive for positive change because the family strive for positive change. And it may have started in Scotland, although, our pioneering background, we've been global, and we remain global because we still have a global outlook. We've got businesses in the States, in Australia, in Singapore. But the Thomson family also have a Thomson Trust, which is the Northwood Trust. And they've been instrumental in doing various things in Scotland, from bringing the V&A to Dundee. We're currently involved in the Eden project and bringing that to Scotland. And also, working with the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown on the multi-bank and helping vulnerable families and children. So all of this comes from the family. And our job is, there's less pressure because, you know what you're walking into. There's more pressure because I don't want to be the one to ruin the reputation that, has been going for, 200 years.
Yeah. It's not the danger is you wreck the stock price. The danger is you wreck the family legacy.
Well, but it's reputation.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the one to mess up the reputation, and nor do my colleagues. So there's this sense of really wanting to do right by our customers and making the family proud. And if we can be a cogging handing over to the next generation and safeguarding something that is intrinsically good. I mean, the family have 1,000 ways in which they could invest, and they choose to invest in us and in the communities that we are in. That's a privilege, and we need to take that seriously.
That's a lovely story.
I think our chairman, Christopher Thompson, I don't know if you know him, he recently said that he believes that we are living through one of the most exciting times in our history. And I think he's right. And to be entrusted with the transformation of an organization, but of people more than anything, through a period of such change and excitement it's an honor and it's a privilege.
So how do you approach that level of change in a company that is, as you said, 200 years old? When you come to that table and it's like, okay, we want to make some changes, we want to transform this business. Oh, we've got these brands, that one of which started in 1739 and reported on Culloden and had stuff in there from Robbie Burns and all this, these great Scottish legends. How do you even start with that?
So again, I feel fortunate. Our roots go back, as you rightly say. I think it was founded in 1849, and I think we were known as William Thomson Shipping. So we came from shipping. So that shows you the pioneering spirit that's taken us to where we are today. So it's not a business that's always been in the same industry for just shy of 200 years. So we're going back to our roots. We're being pioneers. We're embracing change, and what a century in which to do it. I think we've now become a community of, I suppose there's a trading business which is increasingly subscriptions and B2B and investments. And, we go from publishing to journalism, but we're so much more than that because we have puzzles and we go way beyond that. From bringing bus routes back in a city centre, or getting landlords and local businesses and councillors to try and see how we can reinvigorate the high street. So there's, it goes from that. There's no financial value in that, but there's huge pride. Yeah. So all of that.
It's that reputational thing as well, isn't it? It's like
totally. So
to be known for something more than selling magazines or selling newspapers or whatever.
And that's that might be what is seen from the outside, but it's a very discreet company. We don't go out and shout from the rooftops. We have a diverse portfolio, but we've networked it into, I suppose, 8 insight-led communities, and they're united by a golden thread. And again, the values come through here because it's advisors, advocates, and connectors for the communities that we serve.
What are those communities? How would you describe those communities?
So we've got local, which is local news in Scotland. We have energy. So again, we have offices in, so our headquarters are in Dundee. We have offices in Aberdeen, Inverness, Glasgow, and Edinburgh. But Aberdeen is the gateway to the North Sea. Think of the change that is happening in the energy space at the moment. Think of, is it different data, but is it 1 in 3 people in our catchment area work in energy, or some say it's 1 in 10, but it's huge. So that change again is on our doorstep. Who's advocating for these people? How are we helping the decommissioning of oil and gas into renewables, and the convening power that we have, where we can work with government, work with Holyrood, work with the oil rigs and the owners, and be a force for good and a force for change in energy. Then we've got history, which is about genealogy. We believe that everyone deserves to know their past, should they want to. And this business had 200,000 digital subscribers. So the knowledge there to help inject a lot of those newer skills into some of the more traditional areas of our business. Yeah. And actually, there's 350 million people worldwide who have their roots in the UK and Ireland. And here we are in Scotland, and we have a genealogy business, we have local news. So we start bringing it all together. We've got puzzles, and puzzles, transformation is all about puzzles. So actually having a puzzle community, transformation is about puzzle solving. Yeah. So puzzles where we syndicate across our business, but we syndicate across the world in terms of puzzles. Then we've got golf. Yeah. Scotland is the home of golf. And we do the Scottish tourism event, golf event. We've got kids with the Beano and Dennis the Menace.
So what ties those all together?
Connectors, advocates for our communities, and we are in the communities that we serve.
There's not a single destination there. They've all got their own destiny. Action destination is probably a word you hate, right? But they're all on a path, which is their own path. But you've just mentioned the idea of learning from the subs business and taking that elsewhere.
I think it's a total mix. There's an infrastructure and a core that remains the same. So we're not going to get the best talent in the country if we have 16 companies with 16 different tech stacks, where if someone's on local, we don't know what they're doing in energy in Aberdeen, or someone's doing puzzles over in Cornwall, but fundamentally, again, they also subscribe of the Scots mag because they're originally Scottish or they love Scotland. So we need to unite that. So there's a cornerstone of infrastructure that is the same. And that is where we benefit from data technology innovation that is, build once for reuse. But then, of course, each community is different and the customer base is different and the behaviors are different. So where we explore the different paths, if we look at, we talked about, Scots Magazine, which is, the oldest magazine in the world that is still in publication, as you rightly said. It's covered the biggest stories in Scottish history. You talked about the Battle of Culloden, but it's 2 world wars. But it also has the 2014 independence referendum. Yes, Sir Walter Scott, Bobby Burns, James Roswell, they've all contributed, and amazing talent still contributing. But that magazine is woven into Scottish heritage. We know that's from the past. But it continues to look to the future. So we're about to launch Gallivant, which is for those who love Scotland, and it's a long form journalism about Scotland that's going to land in your inbox. So the very fact that it's from 1739 actually hasn't stopped us from looking forwards. It's not the oldest magazine in the world for nothing.
So is Gallivant a newsletter?
It will be.
And it's based around existing content or new content?
Both. It's celebrating some of what we've done and some of the amazing contributors, but it's also modernizing it and making it, very much for today's audience. And we've been working on Scots Mag and its offshoots for the last year. Phenomenal editorial team and leadership. The away days have been in little bothies in different parts of Scotland, as opposed to 5-star hotels and etc. It's and going for hikes and taking dogs. It's been very real and authentic.
Yeah, amazing. What makes change work, or what makes a change project work? Is there a secret formula?
It's not secret. It's people. We have to. You're interviewing me. I'm not the success factor here. It is all my colleagues. From every single person, from the receptionist through to every leader in the organisation. But everyone has a unique role, and they have had to go through the pain of changing everything in their day to day. If you think of a journalist who came to work in local news, 10, 15 years ago, they came in, they had this amazing scoop that through their network, they covered this story, they held, power to account, it's published. Nowadays, they can't do that on their own. They have to understand what our audiences are wanting. They have to understand how we're going to amplify this. Will someone pay for this? We've always been reader, viewer, listener led. We've never been an ad model. So it's always been about what our communities want from us and how we can help our communities. And I genuinely believe we've gone from broadcasting to narrowcasting. And then we've gone from narrowcasting to two-way engagement. And that's about listening. And so people are the cornerstone of success. It's a team sport. We're not looking for the best violinist. We're looking for the best violinist who wants to be part of an orchestra. it's solving puzzles, it's understanding the big picture. The hardest thing is to understand cause and effect. So when I go into many organizations, what's happening is everyone's pedaling incredibly fast by fixing the symptoms, but not the root cause. And it's really hard to try and understand, or unpick one from the other. I think aligning behind a goal, if we can all agree that that's where we're going over there, then that's more helpful because it helps with decision making, it helps with prioritization. The cultural shift is not a dashboard. It's a living, breathing thing that we're as good as our weakest link. Again, it's like a team sport. Support at board level, you cannot do this without board support. And again, incredibly fortunate. I think from the board all the way through the organization, managing uncertainty. It's terrifying.
How do you do that?
Take out blame culture, because if we don't know, we're not going to make all the decisions, aren't going to be right. We're going to make many, many mistakes. Encourage where we make mistakes, and that includes, myself. I will be very open and put my hand up and say, okay, I made a wrong call on that. What can we learn from that? Why did I make that call? Okay, so I didn't listen to you, apologies. So I need to, that needs to change in the next decision-making process. Sharing failure. The only failure is not sharing or not fessing up. I think it's providing training and tools and see who chooses to seize these and who's curious and who actually just wants go away, undo the status quo.
That's interesting. Because AI is what everyone's talking about in that context. It used to be the web, it used to be email, it used to be podcasts, it used to be video, whatever it is, but now it's AI. How do you get people on board with that? Are you trying to get, I'm assuming you're trying to get people on board, using AI as a tool that you mentioned? So,
yes, of course. And I think, transformation is now business as usual. It's not a thing, it's just a new way. I mean, COVID was business as usual. High inflation was business as usual, and now the global uncertainty is business as usual, whether it's tariffs or anything else. So let's just take it as business as usual. AI is going to be business as usual, and we're only in the foothills. So the disruption is going to be huge. The good news is any company that's been managing disruption well, and any team that's managed disruption well, will be in a great place. I think pretty much every media organization is using AI, different forms. It's exciting. It's going to take away a lot of the processes in the same way that digital tools took away a lot of the processes. It's just going to, what digital took 25 years to do, AI will be 3. Let's not forget AI started many decades ago. So tech is changing, which means behaviors will change because that will impact you and I. And therefore operating models will change, and therefore our businesses need to change, our communities are going to change, which means we need to be lockstep with them. I find it exciting, I find it terrifying, but it goes back to my chess and Russian roulette. You control what you can control, you experiment as much as you can, you learn from the experiments, and then you place bold bets, and in other areas you have caution. That's
really interesting. I interviewed Sean Cornwell at Immediate probably about 2 weeks ago, and he said exactly the same thing about you control what you can, and everything else is you accept that you're just going to have to get on with it.
And if we look at our sort of last few years, who would have thought that Beano, such an extraordinary, iconic comic, would spurn a consultancy agency that helps Beano Brain helps understand, for third parties, helps understand, children's behaviours and working with organisations to get our legislation right to protect children, working with organizations to help them, launch new products, empathetic, intelligent insights, all because we have known for decades how kids behave and what makes them laugh. So we wouldn't have known 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that would be a direction of travel for a comic. When we had a supplement in the Press and Journal in Scotland that actually tackled energy because we're in Aberdeen, we didn't know that would spurn a membership program for those who are looking at change in the energy space and want to be part of renewables and want to be part of the debate and actually a network of like-minded people. So we've got traditional businesses that, our Puzzle magazine business is one of the biggest syndicators in Europe of puzzle content. That's digital.
Yeah.
So we don't know what these next 5 years, but again, trust the process, have the right people, create an environment or experimentation and take blame away and know that we're going to make lots of mistakes.
Thanks so much to Rebecca for taking the time to speak to us. And don't forget, we have a write-up of the key learnings from this interview on voices.media, or dropping into your inbox if you've signed up to the publisher newsletter, also on voices.media. We'll be back next week with another look at the people and the products powering publishing's future. Until then, keep up with all things Media Voices by following us on LinkedIn and subscribing to the publisher newsletter over on voices.media.